I've seen an increase in support across the board from European leaders, from American leaders in my own country, Republicans and Democrats, Andy Card from the Bush administration, and I from the Clinton administration, and so many other distinguished diplomats that we have here that have served under bipartisan presidents are united in this cause. And the support has grown, and that's been very positive. The European Parliament has taken action. There's an increasing support in the American Congress for this cause. There is also an international community that, because of you, the human rights activists that are so directly affected by this issue, have raised around the world, especially in Europe. Yet at the same time, we see the government of Iran increasingly becoming more hostile to the international community, saying they're going to build nuclear weapons at all costs, storming the British embassy, pressuring the Iraqi government to go into Camp Ashraf. We see the massacres at Camp Ashraf that have taken place, and you saw those pictures. We see an Iranian government laughing at the international community that says, let's try to work out arrangements to reduce your nuclear stockpile. And so you see this growing hostility. You see this country also manipulating hostages, American hostages, foreign hostages, for political gain. Most recently, an American hostage in a video yesterday. At the same time, we look at the situation at Camp Ashraf, and things have not gotten better in the last 6 months. In fact, right now, this is the most important human rights issue, I believe, affecting the international community. Because in 21 days, those at Camp Ashraf may be relocated. And we must prevent that relocation. We must stand behind them.
As we all know, time is short and the need for action is urgent. So what can we do now? We can continue to pressure Prime Minister Maliki to delay closing the camp and allow the UNHCR to do its work. The UNHCR must be allowed to start the process of registering, identifying, and interviewing the residents. The U.S. and the European Union have ways to influence his decision-making, and we know that he can be influenced. We know that he is sensitive to negative publicity by his claiming in an article in the Washington Post this past week that he is seeking a so-called peaceful solution to Camp Ashraf. When he comes to Washington next week, President Obama must tell him to keep the camp open and allow the UNHCR to do their work. We must also continue to publicize the vulnerability of the camp's residents. Silence is the enemy of their safety and their freedom. As we all know, the United States has a special responsibility to protect the residents at Camp Ashraf. This responsibility doesn't end on December 31st. It doesn't end when the last American soldier leaves Iraq. It ends only when all the residents of the camp are safe and secure and allowed to live their lives in peace and in dignity. The fastest, the easiest, the best way to accomplish this goal is to delist the MEK immediately.
Well, tell Samantha Power that I don't want to have to write a book called A Problem from Nowhere, because this is not a problem from hell. This is a problem that is easily solvable, and the solution is in the hands of this administration. It is in the hands of the President of the United States, who is meeting with the head of Iraq. And if the President of the United States sits silent during that meeting, The head of Iraq will leave that meeting thinking he has an imprimatur to go ahead and close Camp Ashraf. Silence is not an option for the president. Silence is complicity. Silence is facilitation. Silence is permission.
Next week, President Obama will be meeting with the Prime Minister of Iraq. I pray that President Obama is not silent. I pray that he uses that First Amendment to the Constitution to express his opinion. I pray that he recognizes your gathering. I pray that he petitions the government of Iraq. And I pray that he is not silent, he is cognizant, and that he is courageous. Because you see, the United States has a disproportionate responsibility. The United States promised to protect the people of Camp Ashraf. The United States promised that the people of Camp Ashraf would have the Geneva protections of a protected people. The United States has an obligation to follow through on that promise, and it has a responsibility to make sure that Prime Minister Maliki fully understands the promise and that there are consequences if it's not kept.
And I want to say to all those Department of State advisors of the President who are preparing him for his meeting with Nouri al-Maliki, that first and foremost, there is another phrase that has been left out of today's discussion but is pertinent, and that is, history is doomed to repeat itself if you fail to learn from it. And we have State Department, Secretary Gates met with Nouri al-Maliki on July, just before the 27th, 8th, and 9th attacks, and was assured by the Iraqi government that they would not do anything. And then they did. April 7th, Secretary Gates once again met Nouri al-Maliki, assured that nothing would happen. And the next day, he ordered troops in to assault Camp Ashraf. Fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. This is on the conscience of the United States, not to let Nouri al-Maliki lie to us once again, as he's done twice before, when he met with Secretary Gates the first time on July 2009, and when he met with Secretary Gates the second time on April 7th. Do not let this happen again, Mr. President, because if Nouri al-Maliki meets with you on the 12th, and 3 weeks later he commits one of the greatest violations of human rights and crimes against humanity by assaulting and murdering the 3,400 unarmed refugees of Camp Ashraf, that will be too much for our country to have to explain that we did not know that it was going to happen. We have been told it's going to happen. We have seen it happen twice before. Let us not use the excuse that we did not know this was going to happen.
Now, we have the particular problem of Camp Ashraf, which is in a way a continuation of the malice of the mullahs without mercy. We've had General Phillips' testimony today that confirms that they were formally recognized as protected persons under the Geneva Convention. Well, let me tell you that once you are defined and listed as a protected person under the Geneva Conventions, how long does that last? It lasts until you no longer need protection, and they need today. So not only do we have the problem, not only are they protected under the Geneva Convention, but we have the decommissioning. The decommissioning process went on in 2003, and the result of that was that the deputy commander of the coalition forces praised the residents of Camp Ashraf for working together in the spirit of common humanitarianism and confirmed the coalition's endorsement of their right to be protected from violence and their right as refugees not to be what we lawyers call refouled, that is, sent back to Iran where they will, without doubt, be executed.
Le moment est donc venu, mes amis, de dire, d'ici, de Paris, premièrement que tout déplacement ne serait acceptable que si les casques bleus sont en charge de la protection des habitants. Que, deuxièmement, comme le secrétaire général des Nations Unies l'a rappelé récemment, aucune décision ne pourrait être prise sans l'aval des habitants d'Ashraf et de leurs représentants. 3. Que l'inscription par le Haut Comité des réfugiés, aux réfugiés des Nations Unies, de chacune et de chacun des habitants d'Ashraf doit se faire, cette inscription, impérativement à l'intérieur du camp et non pas à l'extérieur. 4. Que tout déplacement d'un Ashrafien doit obligatoirement se faire après identification par le HCR. Et que 5. L'Union européenne, la France, le gouvernement français et également le gouvernement américain doivent peser sur l'Irak pour interdire le déplacement des habitants, faire reporter l'ultimatum de la fermeture d'Ashraf pour que le Haut Comité